How are we doing today?
Oh, you're sitting down? Sit down. What's
How many people are Irish? Raise your hand. You guys, it's Chicago. Everybody's Irish on St. Patrick's Day. Everybody raise your hand. Come on now, let's go. All right. In fairness, we do need to understand a little bit about our audience. So the topic today, WMS and WCS. So how many people have a warehouse management system? How many people have a warehouse management system that they've installed in the last 10 years? 5 years? 3 years. Okay, so we got some legacy WMS. All right, very cool. How many people have recently, in the last 3 years, put a WCS in? 5 years? 7 years? Okay, cool. So we got a little bit of older WMS, a little bit of older WCS. Good news, you're not alone. A lot of people are in the same shoes that you are. All right, so first and foremost, my name is Michael Wohlwend, and I am honored and privileged to introduce you to our panel of speakers today. First and foremost, let's give it up for Michael Harris. Give him a round of applause. Coming all the way in. It's always nice when a client takes time away from his building as he's getting ready for back to school, and there's other people at the office, protecting your investments over there. But no, thank you seriously, Michael, for coming. And then Scott Lee is the founder and CEO of Systems in Motion. And then all the way down on the end, we actually have a special guest. He's the one that makes actually the magic happen. Give a round of applause for Jim Ellis.
Yes.
Jim and I had the opportunity to work on a couple different projects and go lives, and he's worth his weight in gold. And he's just a spectacular individual that can talk at a completely different technical level than I can. So a little bit about our presentation today. We're going to hear from Michael, and he's going to talk a little bit about school specialty. So it's always nice to understand, right? Everybody in here that has a warehouse, you receive it, you store it, you pick it, you pack it, you ship it. We all do that, but your product, seasonality, your profile. So let's learn a little bit about our good friend, school specialty. Then we're going to talk about the problem that we are attempting to solve, right? You've got so much opportunity. Where do I start? And as Scott Lee likes to say, we're going to eat the elephant one bite at a time, right? So we got to make sure that we can do it and not disrupt our business. We'll talk a little bit about the approach we took, and then we'll talk a little bit about the WMS selection and implementation, but then we're going to drive really heavy into the WCS, what it is, how we went about it, how we did that, and then most importantly, Michael's going to talk about all the lessons learned that he had with this project. So without further ado, Michael. Are you using that one?
I'll use this one. All right, again, my name is Michael Harris. I'm the Director of Fulfillment for School Specialty. I run the Mansfield, Ohio warehouse. It's about a 270,000 square foot warehouse. We house about 27,000 different items. We ship school supplies, so anything from pens and pencils to whiteboards to anything that goes into a classroom, we supply it out of our warehouses. So when you think about school specialty, for those that you may know who school specialty is, but if you don't, K through 12 education is our big market. We're the largest school supply distributor in the country. We're in 90% of our school districts in the country. So bread and butter K-12, but we do dabble into our community settings, parks. We'll build park equipment, etc. Early childhood education, healthcare facilities we really get into now, and we'll also help businesses build out their footprints. So a little bit about school specialty. We carry, as a company, over 80,000 different products. Our distribution centers carry between 10 to 27,000, depending on which distribution center we have. Our headquarters is in Greenville, Wisconsin, 20 minutes south of Green Bay. Outside of there, we have our facilities in Mansfield, Ohio. We manufacture out of Cameron, Texas, also Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And then we have a showroom in Dallas that will bring in our big clients or ones that want to see how we design our classrooms. So they'll come to Dallas, Texas, and we'll showcase how we build out a classroom to get the most out of our students. We were established in 1959. We have just over 1,000 employees for school specialty. So we will design a classroom. We'll also manufacture, as I said, the stuff that goes in the classroom, and then we'll distribute at a high level as well. We do have educational experts that work for school specialties, so we'll go out with the teachers and talk about the latest and greatest, so they understand what kind of environment do the students need, but also what kind of education do the teachers need, so that way they can get the most out of the students. A little more in depth for our breadth and depth of our offering. So kind of going through furniture and equipment obviously goes into classroom, sensory special needs, so we're really a big partner in ensuring that any type of student is supported through our products. Educational supplies, so that's where I kind of come into play as far as shipping those pieces out. Safety and security, so when you talk about the school shootings and stuff, we partner with our local law enforcement. We go into schools and we tell you what's the best way to keep your classroom safe. And so we'll teach that. We will provide equipment to put in your classrooms as well. And then obviously technology to ensure that we stay away from just the desk and the chair kind of model. We look at different types of things to keep students interacting. So we do a lot of our own class, or so the brands on your right, those are all of our private label companies that we have for us, but we also partner with the Crayolas, 3M, et cetera, and support and sell their product as well. A lot of our business is done through co-ops or purchasing agreements through contracts with public and private schools. So what we needed to solve is we were looking at getting a new WMS, a WCS. We were at the end of the life of both of those, so a lot of them weren't supported anymore. If they were supported, it was very poorly. We didn't have a lot of opportunity to grow with what we had, so we had to look for something new. So that's where we partnered up with Alpine, who then partners up with Systems in Motion. So looking at how do we get the most out of most out of the money we want to spend, what's our biggest bang for our buck, how much would it cost to improve our facilities across the board, where do we want our facilities to land. But when we looked at the biggest thing, is the WMS was the biggest thing we needed to take care of first. So I will hand it over to Michael to talk about our master plan.
All right, so when you think about this, the CEO calls me and says, Michael, we have never invested in our infrastructure. Maybe 6 years ago, Michael in your facility got some new rack and stuff, but it was woefully under 1980 conveyor, old WMSs, old infrastructure. We know that we need to make an investment. The question is, where and when do we make an investment and how do we do it? So I said, well, Ryan, what you're really talking about is a strategic master plan. He goes, what's a strategic master plan? I go, well, in a warehouse, you got 4 assets, right? You got space, equipment, labor, and control. And it's never an exact science, it's more of an art. If you're out of space, you might have to spend more money on equipment. If you don't want to spend money on equipment, you got to spend it on space. If you got too much labor, you might need to spend it on software or controls. If you don't want to do that, you're going to spend more labor. So let's establish a baseline. So number 1, do nothing. If I don't do anything and I keep running exactly like I am for the next 3 to 5 years, what's that going to cost me? And then what's the opportunity cost if I actually invest in both the distribution centers, if I put in some automation, if I consolidate down to one distribution center, or why don't I outsource it, just give it to a 3PL? So we looked at all the options and we basically said $10 million a year in labor if you do nothing. But if you invest $5 million to fix both the distribution centers, put in a brand new WMS, this is the one that gives you the best ROI. So this was the plan, great. Now I need to know, I'm gonna go invest about $5.7 million to fix my DCs, but before I do that, am I in the right spot? Like, what's the cost benefit, my inbound transportation and my outbound transportation? So we looked at a network optimization, and as you can imagine, where all the schools are is where the population is. So based on their customers and the shipping, what we were able to decide is, okay, great. So if I did a single DC on my inbound, it's in northern Indiana. If I do a single DC on my outbound, it's southern Indiana. If I was to do one DC, it's right there around Indianapolis. However, if I do a 2 distribution network model, looking at my inbound, outbound transportation, it's Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and Overland Park, Kansas. Okay, so now I know these are my 2 ideal states. What's the penalty to keep my facilities in Mansfield, Ohio, and Green Bay, Wisconsin, right? Based on Appleton, Green Bay, 220, 221, whatever it takes, within that area. Well, it's only going to be about $1 million, $1.5 million a year in penalty. Well, I can't build a brand new distribution center for $1.5 million in savings just on transportation alone. So we're going to keep the buildings where they're at, the two places, and now we got to go and figure out. And you saw that last bullet point, right? The longest pole in the tent is a WMS. It's usually around 3 to 4 months to do a selection, 6 to 9 months to do the first site, and we talked about how many sites and where we need to go, right? So number one, in order to start building our future roadmap, we got to make investment in the infrastructure. The number one thing we needed to do was look at our WMS. So they had an IT landscape, right? As you can see the box on the top right, they had 2 locations with Pick-to-Light. They had a WCS in place. They also had a Sterling warehouse management system, and then they also had a radio beacon WMS. So they had made some, investments in the past, but now they wanted to standardize so they can minimize their overall cost to maintain these environments across their environments. So what we did is we put a, shopping list together. Number one, labor management system. So we wanted to understand how to plan for our resources. They have a July and August, they are 6 times more than they are any other month because they're shipping to schools getting ready for back to school. So their peak season was a little different. The other big one is voice picking, and they needed to be able to integrate to a WCS or a WMS. The other big one was the yard, understanding advanced ship notices, EDI, ASN, built-in parcel, and one of the biggest drivers of the ROI was cartonization, being able to pick directly into that outbound box. So once we put all of these things together, we actually ran a selection process. So we had the requirements, we did discovery, we had an RFP, we scored the RFP, we actually developed a scripted demo, we scored the scripted demo, we got down to a vendor of choice and alternate, and we had 2 very, very viable vendors. And at the end of the day, let's be honest, school supplies, not a lot of margin, so the lowest cost was one of the reasons that we ended up choosing Blue Yonder. Now, in addition to that, there were some other unique factors. Blue Yonder actually partnered with Optricity. Optricity is actually the #1 slotting optimization tool, and in both of their buildings with 35, 50,000 items, making sure that you're not doing bend and reach and additional travel, that was a huge differentiator for them. Obviously, the cubing picking directly into the outbound box, and then the fully integrated into a parcel manifesting system. So a lot of their shipments are parcel. They do LTL and they do TL, but really the parcel was the big part of it. So that was what we did, how we did it. We partnered with Open Sky Group. I'm happy to say that we have our 3rd site live. We're about to bring our 4th site live, and then we're going to go Lancaster will be our last site actually after this school season. So that's a little bit about school specialty, problem that we were trying to solve, how we got there. Now let's dive into the WCS. Mr. Lee, we'll take it from here.
Perfect. Thank you, Michael. Can everybody hear me okay in the back? Wonderful. Appreciate it. Now you know who they are, why they're doing what they're doing. Let's figure out how we did what we did. Now, from a technical standpoint, you are not going to get that from me. I'm not very technical. I'm going to try to keep it about 50,000 feet. Jim is going to take over for a couple slides and talk about some technical side of it. So who the heck am I? My name is Scott Lee. I'm the president of Systems in Motion. We're what we call your traditional systems integrator. We're headquartered in Chicago, the Elgin area. We have employees in 17 different states, well represented. We've done integration in all 5 provinces in Canada, Mexico, and all 50 states throughout the United States. We're your traditional storage and integration and automation company. However, we have a whole other side that does all goods to person solutions as well. You can visit us at booth 3820 after this is over to learn more about that. All right, so I'm going to make the assumption that you're not super ecstatic with your existing WCS, and that's why you're sitting in this room on a wonderful Monday afternoon. There's a lot of really cool stuff, robots and things to see out there. WCS to me, it's not very sexy, but it's very essential, all right? The reason people ignore it is because it's scary as hell. Because in a typical environment, WCSs are a little black box. That's what they were. They're essential, but they didn't add any value. They just were the glue that held the puzzle pieces together. So what we're going to do is talk a little bit of some of the problems that they are having and why they brought systems in motion and selected COS as the ultimate solution. So as I mentioned there was a lot. Michael said that they had pieced together a system over 25, 30 years and backed into all these software programs that essentially, if you pick our sandwich, we've got our WMS up on top, we've got all the automation that's on the bottom, and we've got this thing in the middle that needs to talk to them, and it's typically a black box. It really, and nobody knows what the heck it does, where it came from, and if it goes down, you're in trouble or who to call. So lack of confidence was a huge thing. When it went down, to be able to get it back up and who to call. Also, zero visibility to it. It doesn't have screens and all these sexy pictures and on and off lights and indicators and people are standing there taking care of. It's just this thing that was programmed by the original systems integrator and they have no idea how to keep it up and running. And then lastly, that timely response time by a responsible systems integrator that understands the problem and can react quickly. They were dying on that, some serious downtime. They also, as they mentioned, decided no matter what, we're upgrading our WMS system. Well, if you upgrade the WMS system on the top, it sure can't talk to the stuff on the bottom without having a nice thing between it. And we can't use the old thing we had. And additionally, the old thing we had, there was no documentation on it. They have no idea how it got there. They knew where it sat on a server, but that was about it. And when you know how you fix the problem, right? Just like you do on your computer, you turn it off, you turn it back on and hope it starts again. All right? And there was no team to support that. They also made the decision that at this point, we're gonna gut this WCS. We have to do this. And as a matter of fact, it's so important that we're gonna try to do it at some point during the WMS. So let's make it even more complex. We're gonna throw this project on top of it as well. Oh, and also let's upgrade the WCS controls and all this stuff on the conveyor automation on the floor. All right, so how do you start this process? When you do a WMS, or I know if I'm buying pallet rack or I'm buying conveyor, you know what you have, you know what you need, so you can go out there and put together a selection criteria for you and go out to the marketplace and do this. But when we're talking about this black box and nobody really knows what the heck it's doing, how do you find the correct vendor and product for you? So what you have to do is define this high-level scope of what you want the outcome to be and who's done that before and what product has done that before. So what they said is, they came to us and said, all right, what has to happen? Has to be zero impact to the floor. Nobody on the front stage can know what's going on while you're doing all the work backstage. You need to be able to, unfortunately, communicate with old WMS systems and new WMS systems and be able to flip back and forth between them. And while you're doing it, we also funded and decided we want to upgrade and implement 2 pick-to-light systems at the same time. And you got to gut the old ones and take care of that infrastructure. So, we're still on. All right, so front stage, as I mentioned, we've got all these things going out on the order picking. We've got receiving going on, we got stock, we got bulk replenishment, we got forward order picking, shipping. All these activities are happening at the conveyor system level. We got weighing, scanning, pick to light. Folks, nobody can know what's going on backstage as you're integrating this in the front stage, even though we're going to be bringing all these new valuable materials and operational techniques that they can leverage and benefit from us. Also, as I mentioned, you have to be able to communicate with WMS on the existing system, on this really old platform, and the new platform, and I'll explain that in a second. And this is one of the things we pride ourselves on, as we know it's the title of the slide, doing a WCS, WMS integration at a greenfield or brand new facility is much easier, as you know, than a brown existing facility. It's super tough, and probably why some of you are sitting in this room today, because you put that off. And you didn't know why, but it's been a pain in the butt, it's driving you crazy, and it's scary as hell to replace one of these things without a good team. So one of the things we pride ourselves on, and Jim will talk a little bit about, is we embrace reverse engineering. So what we'll do, we'll go investigate the existing environment today that exists between the operation happening on the plant floor, all the warehouse controls, up to the WCS, and the WCS up to the WMS factor, and we can reverse engineer that. Now, is it going to be the most optimum new technology? No, but what we can do is upgrade to that later. But there's one thing I think everybody in the room agrees upon, and I'm not offending anybody if you're in the actual IT department, but operations people, the IT department doesn't like you. And it goes both ways, right? So it's just very difficult. The two different environments, there's battling resources. They don't talk the same languages at all. So when we tell people we reverse engineer things, operations people say, thank you, because now I don't have to deal with them as much, and they can go work on their other projects. And when you're doing a WMS project on top, their resources are probably already overwhelmed. They don't need to be burdened with two headaches. So one thing we do is we reverse engineer these activities. All right, why systems in motion? I said Michael worked with school specialties long before we got involved. They selected us because one of our great experiences, we developed this tool back in the late 80s through BASIC and utilizing DOS, and it's grown all the way up through on a .NET platform now. So we have a lot of experience integrating these in brownfield facilities. This, as I mentioned, has grown significantly over the last years. We've done countless interfaces with old AS400s up to brand new technologies on all types of platforms. So we're very comfortable with it, and I'll show you that in a second. And we have several, just so happen, we also have several system integration projects with, it used to be called Lightning Pick, and that was bought by Matthews. They're sitting in the room today. A lot of interfaces with them. So we already have inside our module software pick-to-light module. So, all right. As I talked about the little black box and why they picked us, we showed them a couple of packages that we have, and it's no longer this black box. This is vibrant interface that tells you a ton of information that can be used both from the IT side when we talk about what's happening and how that interface is working, and then especially from the operator view on the floor. And in a pick module, you can know what boxes were scanned, you can do lookups. There's a whole bunch of reporting statistics where you never had that information before. And if there is a problem, you can quickly identify where that problem is. Okay, we talked a lot about what's really important is that interface between the WMS and the WCS. When I talked about WCS, I'm also meaning WES, warehouse executions. You're seeing things transform. This isn't about deciding between WES and WCS. Our COS system is more of a WES, but people looking to upgrade are often upgrading from a WCS, a warehouse control system, not to a full warehouse execution system. All right? So the important part is also making sure that you've got folks you're working with that can understand how it impacts the factory floor. When I say factory floor, I'm saying distribution center, e-commerce fulfillment, factory, whatever it is, packaging. We are very comfortable. Systems in Motion has its own in-house controls company. We build our own panels, we do our own PLC programming, and we have the COS software. So we have the ability to integrate across the entire platform. And then lastly, Systems in Motion has a wonderful, it's over a decade old aftermarket service program. It's a whole separate group. It started out from mechanical, moved to electrical controls, and now it's integrated the software side. So there's a huge comfort level. There'd be no finger pointing at all in a brownfield facility as we're messing and doing the integration with WMS and then taking over their controls, integrating a pick-to-light, one stop to shop. Whether a piece of conveyor breaks or the PLC goes down or the software goes down, they'd add the 24/7. That's what they were looking for. All right, now, so what the heck is COS? It's this layered sandwich, warehouse execution system, WCS, that sits between our WMS system that's on the top and can interface with any of the orange different types of interface. Remember, I said we're going to reverse engineer this thing, so we might know the optimum, but if you don't have time, or we'd rather do the interface via API endpoints first and then switch it over to something else, we have the flexibility to do that because it's from a module standpoint. So as we talk about COS as a whole, typically WCSs were built for that specific system. We don't do that. We've got a system, the WCS, that comes prepackaged and modeled. And it includes all of these factors from a visibility standpoint, be able to see all of your activities happening in Windows and on your mobile side, interfacing with all of your scanners, whether the scanner's coming through the PLC or going direct to the WCS through your device masters. All of your devices that are on your floors, whether it's print and applies, all of your scales have to be integrated and controlled and up through the WCS. Today, that's happening in a black box in many of your facilities. We wanted to give you visual activities on all these and the status and be able to report out on all that. I want to jump over COS for a second, the business core. All your routing decisions, whether I'm doing zone routing and I'm deciding on prioritizations between left side or right side and a 3 high-level pick module, doing zone routing, doing shipping scanners, all of our, this is the cool part, we're advancing with goods to person, is our integrated interface, whether it's with AGVs, AMRs, OPEX Perfect Fix, whatever it is, we're taking over the control of all of that as well to integrate that seamlessly. All right, this core business unit, this is what makes it special. This is what makes it yours. All the rest of these, we've made it simple to implement, low risk, especially in a brownfield. And I'm going to have Jim jump up in a second and talk about the steps at which we go through to design, implement, and have dev environments and how we integrate this. But know that it's coming from a proven platform and it's not just one and done. All right, these are the basic packages when you come to us. It might be, you may not have anything at all today, and you're saying, I'm not talking about a brownfield where I need to replace my WCS, I just really like one. It'd be really cool, because right now it's a system that stands alone. You may come to us and say, all I have is a print and apply machine. I just want to be able to print a label out, put it on a package, and send it out. And that's where we use our COS Lite. You don't need a whole package. It's literally like saying, I don't need Microsoft Office, I just need Excel. So we can go to market like that. But most of our folks, they're coming in and they're sticking to the top 4 or 5 packages, which is our total base package and our COS Connects. And that COS Connects is the interface up to the WMS. That's a pure module. We can diff switches off and on and configure it to whatever WMS we're hooking up to. Our COS Motion package, that's what we're talking about, our sortation, all of our interface work to our AGVs, AMRs, you name it. COS View, COS Cloud are 2 really cool things. If you want to be sitting at home and watching the game on Thanksgiving or the day after Thanksgiving, but you want to see how the sorter's doing, you have it available right on your laptop, and COS Mobile, you have it on your phone. And one of the things we've done, because we have Jim and his whole team, I told you Systems in Motion has an aftermarket service team. You don't have to worry about that. We've built the AMS app into the aftermarket service. So it can light up, it can tell you it's having a problem in a certain part, and if you don't want to deal with it, you swipe right and hit the button on your phone, and it dispatches the aftermarket service team. So that's pretty cool. And then that COS Custom, that's anything you're doing specially. You're like, what the hell's COS Custom? We've got a lot of folks who do things special in their organization. Let's say you need something gift wrapped, and you're shipping something, we have a gift wrapping lane. Well, we're going to check that field to make sure we get it over in gift wrap and do a divert confirm and timestamp that. So there's a lot of activities that happen that makes you special. That's what we're doing in all this COS Customs. All right, what's the scope of work? So we're trying to put this thing together. We had to do 2 distribution centers in 2 different states at 2 different times, run 2 totally different conveyor systems designs, and talk to 2 WMSs, and poor Jim had to design a platform for that. And put in the 2 pick-to-light systems right here. We had to tear out and gut the existing framework, all the push buttons, all the power supplies, all the data networks, redo all those while they continue to pick, and then upgrade 2 different WMS systems, and then assume responsibility for the entire conveyor system and all the PLCs at the same time and keep them running. So what I'm going to do is have Jim step up here for a second and take over the control for the next couple slides about more of the detail of the implementation.
Okay.
Sir.
Can you hear me okay? Awesome. So School Specialty had a challenge that our COS software solved, and it was based on where they wanted to have our COS software in 2 locations while they're still migrating their WMS system from one system to another. So how do we put something in right away while they're still trying to do all these other activities that surround their warehouse automation needs? And COS was the one that was able to do that because of its scalability and flexibility. And the way we did it was through the fact that we did what we call our dual interface, where we could take in the WMS system from one system and then also work with them on the new system that they're trying to work, which was Blue Yonder, feed it into COS, and then have COS not translate it in a way that the conveyor system won't know the difference if it's coming from the old WMS system or the new WMS system. So that was one of the challenges that we were able to solve through our software. The other thing that you have to keep in mind when we start to do this, it's a little bit more complex than just taking data from one location or another system and going into another system, because it's the data touch points and the data exchanges that become very critical, and to how you're going to accept the data, because what's in the old system might not exist in the new system and vice versa. So you have those challenges that you're facing, trying to understand how you're going to receive data, but then also how do you translate it and get it into the system, work through the conveyor system, and then push it back up to both WMSs. That's where, again, where we were facing some of those challenges with school specialty that we could solve through our modular system, which Scott talked about, our COS Connects and our COS Motion modules. They were able to do that type of automation where we could digest that information, translate it. The conveyor system didn't know any difference, and then push it back up, and it was just easy for them, and that's where that seamless solution kind of came into play. The other thing that we had to really keep conscious of was really the data touch points. Just because one system would bring in the data in a certain interval or based on on-demand or trigger points, the data touch points would be different in the new system. So again, we had to go through a series of implementation workshops, which I'll get into the next slide on what that entails. But it was just being able to be very conscious of all what both systems could do. And then we would take it one step further, where we would actually look at what can not only the system do now, but what else could we do for you? Because now we're migrating from a legacy WMS system into a newer system. So that is the dual interface. Let me get there. Okay, so how did we do this? We went through a series of what we call our COS workshops. This is where we work with the customer on a bi-weekly, weekly basis, or whatever interval that we can work with. This is where we're working through the whole process of getting both systems online so that we can work through that implementation either at one location versus another. So we would sit there and work with the customer on workshops, and we would go through all the things that really are critical, because it's not just the data that we're talking about that's coming into our system. We have to work with the security teams, the network security teams, the infrastructure teams, IT, and all the other things that go along with it, especially with security nowadays being very important and critical. We have to make sure we are compliant with all those things that the customer is trying to implement, and make sure that our software is as secure as possible. So we would sit there and go through those processes, and then how would we work with them on doing the data exchanges too? That's where we would really define what it is. In this case, we were working with two different types of protocols. We were dealing with the new system, which was API endpoints, and then the other one was through socket messaging. And so you had to make sure that both interfaces were well-defined and reverse engineered, so that when we started to migrate from one system to another, our COS system wouldn't know any difference. And when it comes to what the conveyor was going to be doing, the conveyor had no idea where the source was coming from, and then we would control everything in between. Let me just make sure. So the way we did that was through dev environments. This is where it became very key to our success, because COS has the capability of running simulations. So everything that we did with our software, when we worked with the old WMS system in Blue Yonder, we could create these simulated environments for them through testing. So when it actually sent data to our system, we could simulate the picking from a Matthews Perfect pick, or the routing through the whole conveyor system. We could do all these messages through it, and that way it gave not only ensure that our system was very accurate and the integrity of the system was intact, but they could work on the new WMS system at the same time, continuously feeding our system, getting that real-time information back to them, and that way they could know how they could start to work on that migration. So when we did move from one system to another, it was almost as like just flipping a switch almost is how it kind of worked. And so the way we did that was through two separate implementation processes. We would work with the customer on both locations, and sometimes we could cross-train where we could bring someone from one location over to another because there's some common processes going on. But we would work with them on creating the implementation plan, reverse engineer all the things that needed to be reverse engineered when it came to the WMS system, make sure that the same security systems were in place, and then all the data logic that had to go into it with all the data touch points were also in place for each implementation. And we went into a detailed documentation of what that would look like. And that is the implementation process. I don't know if I want to hand it over to
Perfect.
you.
All right. Thank you, Jim. There we go. We're back live again. So I don't understand what he said those last 3 slides because I don't do that stuff. But I know it was a ton of work by a bunch of really smart people, and they pride themselves on their process. I'm a big process person. I'm an industrial engineer, and I believe that everything should be documented and processed. We can learn from that every single time, and that makes the next journey that much easier, and they've done an incredible job at that. So we will never go down a path just blind or take a risk. It'll be documented, devved out, simulated, and then implemented for you. All right, so what the heck happened here? Now, we'd love to talk about this, and I know there's technical people in the room, and there's non-technical people in the room. We would love to talk about how we did this in deep dive. I mean, we can go to the booth and talk about that all day long. All we had was 45 minutes to explain who we are, what was going on, what we did, and then the results. And here the customers say they're pretty damn good at it. So what happened there? COS was replaced. The 2 outdated, unknown, black box WCSs interfaced with 2 different WMSs, did dev worlds for both of them, proved it out, implemented them, and fully integrated with the old one and the new one. And then in the second facility, we had to keep the old one running for a little bit, and then over a weekend adopt not only the new Blue Yonder system, but then to flip over and make sure it was also communicating correctly because we'd already implemented the pick-to-light system as well. So there were some challenges there, which I just mentioned. And then we wanted to make sure that they were optimizing because their old pick-to-light system was dead, and we were doing a lot of data measurements on their current pick rates, and what would those pick rates look like now through the new pick-to-light system. We had to assume responsibility for both conveyor systems. They were not mirror images. They couldn't be more different. One was much older than the other one. To give you an example, one of the warehouse systems had 19 environments in it, which means 19 different PLC points being operated on different nodes, and we had to integrate with all those parts of it. We had to take responsibility of that. They had 0 downtime the entire time. Mike will get up and affirm that in a second. So that was pretty cool. And then Systems in Motion was able to onboard School of Specialties into our 24/7 aftermarket service program, which included taking care of the WCS. So I'm going to turn it over to Michael for his lessons learned.
All right, so as we had the opportunity to partner with both Alpine and Systems in Motion, I kind of want to go through and kind of reiterate what the journey we went through and how successful it was. To say that our WCS implementation was the smoothest one I've ever been a part of, like I said, we missed 0 shipments. So a few things I want to kind of point out. Obviously, a lot of the implementations happened over a weekend. The flexibility on all sides were there. Any hours we needed to work, not needed to work, when people would be touching stuff, when they couldn't be, everything was there where we needed to do. We did a lot of testing. But we did a lot of testing with live data. So that was really my stress with it is like, I want to go live we may not be in a live environment, but I want to use live data. I want to use live orders. I want to use live occurrences where perfect orders are great, but we need to make sure that we root out all the other root causes before we go there. We did 2 mock go lives, so I can't stress enough if you're going to do this, use your mock go lives as much as you can. If I could redo it again, I'd probably do bigger go lives. We kind of said, we're going to do 4 or 5 hours. Let's run an 8-hour shift and see what really happens. The visibility, I mean, you kind of talked about the customization of what you could do. Before we could see that our conveyor system was on. We could see maybe what was on the line and what wasn't. Now we can see what lanes are turned on. If I have heartbeats on all my PLCs, so if something's not scanning right away, we're going to know, we're going to get a live alert that that's going on. If I need to reset a scanner, I can do it right from my dashboard. If I want to be here and I want to pull up my database, I can log in and see how my scanners are running, how much my throughput is, how many packing lanes I have on, what's our capacities in each of our freight points. So we really have an operation system now. No matter where we're at, we can run it very effectively. And then from the troubleshooting, I kind of walked through the troubleshooting piece as well. Now that we have an infrastructure that's solid, so we don't now it's given us the ability to look for other opportunities. So now that we have a COS system that says your scanners are running at an 80% read rate, so now we know that's a confident number. Now our next problem is now we need new scanners, which we actually just did the last 30 to 45 days ago. So we went through that process with COS and Alpine to say, we need the best of these scanners. We need to be able to see labels that with an old conveyor system, a box isn't always going to come in straight. So what's my options? So we kind of priced them out, and we just implemented those smoothly as well. Now our read rates are 98% plus. So we're saving a lot of labor because of things are reading the right way the first time. When you look at a WMS, another challenging implementation with that, what I would say with that is good data in, good data out. We all know that. With School Specialty, we have 26,000 different SKUs, but also means that we sell that same item 3 different ways. We sell it by each, the case, and the pallet. So we've learned very quickly, and we're continuing to learn that if your measurements are not right, if your weights are not right, implementations of a new system with Blue Yonder gives you a lot more headaches than you want to have. So can't reiterate that piece of it all. With as far as how the WMS and WCS integrate, the biggest piece that I'll talk about there is it tells it right on the screen if it's talking to each other or not. So if we know that scanners aren't working or they are working, but boxes are still circling, it's because the heartbeat's not there with Blue Yonder and COS. So we know right away we can make a phone call, 24-hour hotline, within 30 minutes we have an answer back of what's going on, and then a solution usually within 1 to 2 hours after that, if it even takes that long. And then really at the end of the day too is the benefits that we have now. Obviously we've just started tying in labor management. So our site now has been live for a few weeks, but our Greenville facility that went in there, we're saving 30% labor a day on an LMS that talks with, obviously causes a piece of that, but more of the WMS. So at the end of the day, we've learned that we've tied multiple systems in at the same time, and using the partners such as Alpine and Sim have allowed us to not skip a beat and gain more knowledge of what our system has and what it needs to be. So next steps are we're actually just signing an agreement to replace our PLCs now, because we realized, hey, we didn't know we really had 17 different systems on 17 different pieces, and that causes a lot of big problems when these guys are even trying to integrate. So now we'll upgrade that. We will be in their house. They'll know right away when something happens, so our resolutions are even much faster. So.
All right. So, am I back on? Right now.
Good pivot.
All right, here we go. So, Michael shared a little bit about his venture and story, and now that we have the live WMS, we're going to go and make more pick faces larger to minimize replenishments. And I just wanted to say, like, School Specialty, peak season, 8 weeks out of the year, huge volume, a lot of SKUs. We knew that we needed to make investments. We figured out how to do it with an ROI. So, what questions do you guys have for Michael, Scott, and Jim about this journey?